So, welcome back to This Week in Golf on Saga 960. My next guest is the co author of the book Tiger Woods, which is a New York Times #1 bestseller. He was an executive producer of the HBO documentary Tiger. He's worked with Sports Illustrated, CBS Sports, HBO Sports, and plenty more. I'm joined by Armen Keteyian. Armen, thanks for joining me.
My pleasure, Chris.
So we'll get into the book right away. For those that haven't read the book, it was released in 2018 before the 2019 Masters win, car accident, and 2022 Masters. Just lay out some of the process you went to. I know you interviewed hundreds of people, did plenty of research. Explain what you did to get this book together.
Well, it was really Jeff Benedict, my co-author, and I. We had just come off writing this other book, New York Times bestseller called The System, which was a deep dive into big-time college football, and neither one of us was really looking to do another big project, climb another mountain. But our agent suggested, Tiger Woods, and both Jeff and I were like, Tiger Woods, hasn't there been about 20 different books written about Tiger? But the more we researched it, Chris, the more that we found out that there were books that were written about very specific periods of his life, right after he turned pro, during early after 2000, when he went on that tremendous run, when he was the best player in the world by far, 2010 after the car accident. There had never been this 360-degree view of his life. And so we decided to jump in. It took us 3 years. We interviewed, I think, north of 250 people. The first year was primarily just reading everything that had been written of significance about Tiger. So we had a very good understanding of what the baseline was for us and how we had to rise above that. And then during that period, we found people that, might have been a fleeting reference to a name, that a very short period of time in Tiger's life, but we found that person interesting. Then we had to find that person oftentimes and then convince them and gain their trust before they would go on the record with any kind of interview. So it was an exhausting process, meticulous in many ways. And then the second year was really the hardcore reporting year, where we found these people, we interviewed them, some people multiple times. And then the third year was really the writing year, where Jeff and I would write a chapter, Jeff would write a chapter, we'd share them, we'd look at them. And I think it's hard, if you read the book, it's hard to tell from one to the other. Our writing styles are very similar. But it was, you talk about climbing another mountain. Mount Woods was one that, it's like Mount Everest. Tiger in many ways was an athlete who was invisible in plain sight. And the two driving questions that we had, which I think are at the heart of the book, are, who is Tiger Woods? Number one, because I don't think he was a very well-formed person in the other writings. And the second question, and the far more interesting question to me, was, what's the price of genius? Because there is a price. You pay a price for that kind of greatness. And so for us, we were very, very pleased with the reviews and the reaction. And but I can't say I want to climb another mountain, anytime soon.
I get that. So the book starts in 2009, that infamous night when Elon goes through Tiger's cell phone when he was asleep. Of all the things that happened in Tiger's life, why was it important to start there at that point in time?
Well, that's the beginning of the end for certain for Tiger there. I think if you're talking about a precipitous fall from grace, it's hard to imagine another athlete that's taken a greater fall, certainly in the public eye, because you put it in the parameters of 2009. It's social media has now really begun to blow up. You've got all sorts of tabloid media. You've got mainstream media. I mean, he was on the cover of the New York Post for 21 straight days, which was more than 9/11, in the city of New York. So it was a dramatic moment. I can tell you, Jeff and I spent a tremendous amount of time trying to get that moment right, because not only in how we were handling the conversations between Tiger and Elon, but also, the sequence of events. He had Ambien in his system? Did he have another drug in his system at that point in time? What had he done the night earlier that evening? It's Thanksgiving. So every little TikTok there is crucial because you can't get it wrong because you're just inviting a lawsuit from someone either from Elin or from Tiger. But we felt it was the greatest place to start because it's probably as dramatic a moment in Tiger's life as any, and in a life full of dramatic moments.
So let's go back to, very early age, Tiger's relationship with Earl. Armen, I'm a parent. I have two kids. I love my kids, but I don't, I haven't been prophesizing that they're going to change the world from when they were 2 years old. What
Yeah.
type of effect do you think that had on Tiger at a young age? Like that's a lot of pressure.
Well, I think for us, we came to the conclusion very early on that you can't understand Tiger if you don't understand Earl Woods and Catilda, Tita, his mom. It was almost, Chris, like he was being programmed, almost like a computer. If you think about it, Tiger in terms of a computer, because a lot of times that's how he came off on the golf course. He was very, it was like you were playing a machine and not a man. So Earl had an enormous, profound influence, as did Tita. But for Earl, as a Green Beret, military, having gone through his own discriminations and racism in the military, which definitely colored Earl's view on America and what it's like to be Black in America. But he also had a deep, profound love of the game of golf, and that was passed on to Tiger. But at a certain point in time, you kind of want to see Earl pull back, as sometimes parents do, to let their kids grow up on their own. That never really happened with Tiger. He was into his 20s before, and Earl really had to get sick before he kind of stepped aside. And there were some things happening in Earl's personal life that Tiger was embarrassed by and upset by. So if you think about it in terms of, it was a threesome, it was a trio. It was Earl on one side talking in Tiger's ear. It was Tita on the other side, who was really, you talk about Tiger's will to win and his warrior mentality. That didn't come from Earl. You'd expect or suspect it would because of the military background, but the mom was the killer. The mom was the one that said to Tiger, you beat them in a way that they don't forget. You put your foot on their neck and you don't get let up until the game is done. And that kind of combination, when I talked about before, what's the price of genius? Well, they created this incredible athlete, this superstar athlete, a once in a lifetime athlete in many ways. But there's a price for that. And Tiger was paying that price and continued to pay that price. You could argue right up until and beyond the crash in 2009, and maybe even into 2017, Memorial Day weekend, when he was found on the side of the road in Florida with that cocktail of drugs in his system, thinking he was in California at the time. So, when you're talking about dramatic characters, whether it would be in the HBO documentary or in our book or, a scripted series, you can't do much better than Earl Woods and Tita Woods.
No doubt. So I'm of the thought that there's more parallels with Tiger with Michael Jackson than there is with Michael Jordan. I mean, Michael Jackson and Tiger never really had a childhood. You think maybe that's a fair assessment?
That's an absolutely fair assessment. And I think it's a very wise look at something, because Michael's upbringing, Jordan's upbringing was, I don't think, anywhere near as complicated as Tiger's, where Michael Jackson was certainly, with his father, was under the same kind of microscope and pressures that Tiger Woods found himself in. And, you can look at other child stars. Tiger was on the Mike Douglas show, a variety show in the afternoon in the States, very popular show in the 70s and in late 70s and the early 80s. He was on that show at 2.5 years old. So he's been in the spotlight really almost from the time he could talk. And I don't even know how to kind of come to grips with something like that. And one of the things that Jeff and I really worked hard on in the book was not to be judgmental, to just let the facts, as best as we could report them, speak for themselves, and let the reader come to their own conclusions as the book evolves.
So you get into it. I mean, Tiger's womanizing out of control. One thing I found really interesting is when he would break up with certain women, it would be done via a letter, not a direct contact with Tiger. Can you maybe explain how he did that a few
Well,
times?
I don't think it was Tiger. I think it was Earl. You know, that letter wasn't written by Tiger Woods. I mean, the belief was is that the parents, and we're talking about Tiger's first true love. You know, Dina Gravel, Dina Parr, beautiful blonde, sort of the classic quintessential Southern California girl. Tiger's a total nerd. You know, they meet in an advanced math class, and they fall in love. She's Tiger's first true love. And I think Dina probably would say the same thing. And, you know, one of the things in the documentary that I thought HBO and the Matt Hamachek was the primary director did so well, there's a sequence in there where you see Tiger as, you know, either before or after prom, and he's dancing. He's on the floor and he's wiggling and he's dancing like crazy. And you can just see the joy in his face. And, you know, there wasn't a lot of that joy because, as I said, it was a threesome. So anybody that came in from the outside was always considered to be, they were wary of outsiders, whether it would be somebody that might be a financial advisor, a coach, an instructor. And certainly when Tiger really fell for Dina when he was a junior in high school, and then their relationship continued right up until the time, you know, he left Stanford to turn pro. That breakup is a monumental moment in the book where Dina and Tiger are together in a hotel, and all of a sudden she gets, you know, Tiger's not there. He's playing in a golf tournament. She gets a call from the front desk, and all of her belongings have been placed, you know, downstairs. And she's basically just been ejected from Tiger's life. And there's a note there. And it's just a cold-blooded, I can't see you anymore. You've been talking behind my back. You're this, that, and the other thing. And there was no question that Earl and Tita saw Dina as a threat. Because at one point in time, Dina was living in Las Vegas and Tiger wanted to go to UNLV instead of Stanford. So that's a red light flashing for the family, for mom and dad to say, well, wait a second here. That's not part of the plan. So, I mean, you talk about these seismic moments in Tiger's life. That's certainly one of them, the breakup. And it took Jeff and I, and primarily Jeff, it took my co-author, Jeff Benedict, took us about a year to gain Dina's trust, where she really talked openly about the relationship and eventually provided the video to HBO that was such a, you know, integral part of the documentary. So I think in that case, would Tiger have regrets about how that relationship turned out? I don't think there's any question he would, because it was really out of his hands at that point in time.
So the apple never falls too far from the tree. Earl, you know, you kind of lay out some of his womanizing and escapades. Can you explain maybe the effect that had on Tiger? I know that was kind of maybe the start of the rift of their relationship.
You're right. Well, I think it's a dual, a double highway here. One, you have Tiger literally at a probably when he's in his early teens, his father's relationship with his mother has fractured. They're still living together, but Earl is a wanton womanizer at that point in time, to the point where he actually has a Winnebago, an RV at a local golf course, the Army Navy course, where, you know, he would pick up girls and he would, you know, under the guise of giving them golf lessons. And then I interviewed a couple of the girls that happened to, and they were a bit of damaged goods, you know, in their own way. And Earl would come on to them, and, you know, he was a smooth operator. You know, he had a way with words, and, you know, he was kind of a bit of a Don Juan, but he would take him into the RV, like literally, you can see it in the documentary. Tiger's, you know, hitting golf balls, and there's dear old dad having sex with, you know, someone that's not mom in the Winnebago, not even 100 yards away. So Tiger was subjected to that kind of womanizing. So it wasn't something that was foreign to him. But then I think the other side of that equation is, and we can't put ourselves in this position, but imagine being the most popular athlete on the planet, right? And you're 21 years old and you're going to Las Vegas, and your running buddies are Charles Barkley and Michael Jordan at a time when Vegas is blowing up in terms of the bottle service and the elite nightclubs, whether it was Light or Tao or, some of the other ones, and you walk in there and you're walking in with three of the most famous athletes on the planet, Tiger maybe being the most famous one at that point in time. And girls are, if they're not throwing themselves at you, the VIP hostesses are bringing girls to your table, the prettiest girls in the club. Oh, would you like to have drinks with Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods and Charles Barkley? Yeah, I think I would. So the one thing, again, what we didn't do, Jeff and I, we weren't judging them, because I can't for the life of me imagine what it's like to be in that kind of stratosphere. But, you know, one thing leads to another. He gets married to Elin in 2004, because that's kind of the Cinderella story for Tiger, the beautiful blonde, the Swedish blonde. But he wasn't ready to get married. And he proved that fairly early on. I mean, he didn't really slow down in the infidelity department for very long after he was married. And that, you know, I think as the fame grew and the addictions grew, he got, he was living multiple lives, 3, 4, 5 lives at a time. And at a certain point in time, if you think about Tiger as a car going off a cliff, you can tell that the car is going to go off the cliff. It's just a matter of, you know, where and when it's going to happen. And that's when it happened. It happened in November of 2009.
So before I worked in the media, I was an award-winning music agent and concert promoter for 20 years. So I work with Grammy winners and Juno winners up here in Canada. And so I have a little bit of a window into that, you know, I'm just a regular guy, but when I'm with them, it's a whole, the access, how women treat you, how women talk to you is 10,000 times different than if I go to the sports bar Thursday night to go watch some hoops. And it was kind of depressing for me when I come home. I'm like, why am I not getting the same attention? Well, I'm not standing next to a Grammy-winning rapper.
Because I'm not with Jay-Z.
Yeah. So like it was, well, I was the Wu-Tang Clan's agent for a long time. I'm familiar with them. Wow. And a bunch of others. And so, yeah, but anyways, so I want to get into, because I know we're a little pressed for time, some of the Toronto connections. Saga 960, we're here in the Toronto area, and your book, as well as Alex Rodriguez's book, goes into Tiger's connections to doctors Mark Lindsay and Anthony Galea. Galea eventually charged with unlawfully providing HGH to a number of athletes. So can you lay out Tiger's connection to those Toronto doctors?
Yeah, well, Mark Lindsay is one of the best you know, active release technique doctors in the world. I met Mark way back, I think it was in the late 90s, when he was working on Bill Romanowski, when Romo was the linebacker for the Denver Broncos, and then later he played for the Raiders. And you know, Mark's a world-class physician. I knew he had worked on Tiger. Tony Galea, I spent a lot of time looking through court records, talking to various lawyers that were connected to Tony. I mean, he had another world-class reputation for being able to, as sort of a doctor of healing. He can accelerate. If you had an injury or you had a surgery, he had this cocktail of healing that he could inject into your body, various kinds of things within that cocktail, drugs within that cocktail that would speed the healing. And in Tiger's world, you know, the big question is, did Tiger Woods use performance enhancing drugs? And I can tell you, from a legal perspective, it's an absolute third rail. You know, if you get that wrong, you are smack dab in the middle of a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. So I was really the principal reporter in that chapter. And, you know, I went to Mark and I said, Mark, look, this is what I'm hearing. And these sources are, you know, they're in the inner circle, and this is what I'm hearing. And if you read this chapter, it ends with this affidavit that Mark Lindsay provided to us with Tiger's approval. It was signed off by Tiger's attorneys, where Mark said, I had my hands on this guy thousands of times. I know what steroid use feels like and looks like. And unequivocally, he said Tiger Woods never used performance enhancing drugs. On the other side of the equation, you have all these court documents that indicate, as part of Tony Galea's cocktail of healing, you know, there were incremental amounts of testosterone and HGH to accelerate the healing. Now, whether that would have been a positive test, whether those were part of Tiger's cocktail, and whether Tiger was aware of what was in those shots when he took them, is an open question. But, you know, you can't say something unequivocally without having an absolute smoking gun to back it up. And I think what we were able to do to the book was to outline all the the rumors and the allegations that had been raised, but never crossing that line to say Tiger Woods used performance enhancing drugs, because no one ever said that to us on the record in a way that was defensible in the court of law, particularly in Canada, where the libel laws are very different. They're British libel laws. They're much more amenable to the plaintiff. And so Jeff and I were very careful. And I think until somebody, and if anybody ever comes forward and says, look, I was in the room, he knew what he was doing, I saw this, I saw that, what I never didn't want to do was, and we didn't want to do was, accelerate the rumors and the suspicions. We would try to just stay right in the middle and report what we found and what we could defend.
So I'm joined by Armen Keteyian, the co-author of the book Tiger Woods. You do such an outstanding job of laying out Tiger's win at the RBC Canadian Open in 2000. I mean, you're an American. Why was it important for that sort of, victory and period of time to be included in this book?
Well, I kept looking at the 10 greatest shots, of all time for Tiger Woods, because you can find them online, and every single one of the top 10, there's that shot out of the sand trap. I think it's a 6-iron, 200 and whatever, 16 yards. There's water, right, trees, and he sticks it 12 feet from the pin. It was just an incredible shot. And then there's the other ones when he's, at Firestone, when, basically it's almost dead dark and people have lighters and they brought automobiles around to light the green, and Tiger can't even barely see his ball. But look, I've always been I grew up in Detroit. I spent a lot of time when I was in high school and later in Toronto. And it's one of my favorite cities. And, I love Canadians. And so I just kept looking at that shot going, first of all, who in the world would try it? Over water, trees right. You had to basically throw a dart at a dartboard from 216 yards. He did it. It was at the peak of his powers. And so, it's not like I was looking to turn something in for the RBC, but the RBC was there, and you just had to mention it.
Yeah, no, anytime I've been to Glen Abbey and stood at that hole, I on the green and go, how the hell did he hit that damn shot? So yeah, unbelievable.
I know. I'm glad you were there, because I just saw it from like my computer screen, and I'm thinking, holy moly. I know what I play a lot of golf. I know what 216 with a 6-iron. First of all, I'm hitting a 6-iron about 165. He's hitting it 205 and just smoked it. And, it's not like he's got a beautiful lie in the fairway. He's hitting it out of a sand trap. And so I just thought it was just part of his magic, the magical powers that he had.
So I know we're getting pressed for time here, but a couple things. So, mention off the top, this book done in 2018, Tiger's magical win at the Masters in 2019, his car crash in 2021, and then amazing return to the Masters this year in 2022. Has your perception of Tiger changed since you did this book in 2018?
Yeah, I think it has. I think, Jeff and I became, I think our book, comes out in 2018. We didn't really know where he was going. We had hints that he was coming back, and 19 was magical. So when the paperback came out, we had we were right on top of his win at the Masters. I think what we witnessed in this year's Masters is his greatest triumph ever. To be able to play 4 days, to shoot 1 under on Thursday, to make the cut on Friday. He finally fell victim, I think, to just pure fatigue and walking the Augusta National. But you talk about a comeback in a moment, and watching people I watched it, the 16th green, the 18th green, standing ovations for a guy that was going to finish near the bottom of the list. It's just an extraordinary achievement. And I think he's in the best place personally in his life that he's ever been. He's more grateful. He's more appreciative. He's more open. And Chris, he's 46 years old, 47, 46 years old. He's lived 4 or 5 lifetimes, and if this next 2 or 3 lifetimes for him are this kind of joy in his life, God bless him, because I think he's given us more joy than we can ever expect. And he's paid a serious price for it. But now he's got, I think he's in a place in his life with his friends and fellow tour pros that he's never been in before. And as I said, God bless him for it.
So lastly, anything else you're working on? Any plugs we can squeeze in before we let you go here? What's the
Well,
next
I'm working
project?
on I've got one more book in me, and it's with a guy named Billy Walters, who's the most successful sports gambler in the history of sports gambling. He's like the Pope of sports gambling. So it's Billy's life story. I've been working with him for the last 20 months. It's almost done. Um, I think there's going to be a scripted series for Tiger. There's been a pilot written. It's very good. And I've got a Netflix project that involving a former NFL quarterback by the name of Steve McNair and his life story and his untimely death. So I'm busy as I want to be right now at my advanced age. So I'm very grateful for what's going on in my life, and it's projects I really want to be involved with.
Well, amazing, Armen. Thank you so much for joining me. Of course, go out and get the book Tiger Woods. Check out the HBO documentary Tiger. Armen, appreciate your time. Thank you.
My pleasure, Chris. Thank you.